Hello, welcome to another episode of Cubby Chats. You guys, the Punisher special aired last night. I'm recording this day of because I have to talk about it, but I'm not going to stay up late because I'm an old man. The Punisher One Last Kill was fantastic. Now, I started coming across reviews early on already, and a lot of people were complaining about The Punisher One Last Kill because in some ways it's a bridge for what was and what's coming. So Daredevil season 2 just finished up last week, and or actually a couple weeks ago. And Daredevil is kind of a bridge from that into Spider-Man 4 because Frank Castle is in Spider-Man 4. We've seen him in the trailer already. And so people thought there was going to be some type of connection to either one of those outside projects, Daredevil or Spider-Man. And it doesn't look like there was any connection. This was a complete standalone project. I feel like this project was written for me. So thank you, Disney Plus, because opening scene, Jon Bernthal shirtless, Frank Castle shirtless, ripped. Second thing, this project actually does not have a lot of dialogue. In fact, this is kind of a huge shift. Obviously, Frank Castle isn't a really big talker, anyways, but noticeably, there was less dialogue in this. He's barely talking. I mean, honestly, if you put down all of the words on paper, I would guess it's probably like 3 pages long. There's way more emotion than there are actual words. In fact, the only person who was talking was the antagonist in this project. Number three, it was good fucking action. Perfectly balanced gore. There was no over over the top unnecessary gore. It all fit well into the storyline and the action. The action was so fantastic. Because Frank Castle, yeah, you can do guns and a little bit of fighting, and then evolves into something more and something a lot cooler. And the project really turns into one long action sequence. I mean, I was sitting here watching it thinking, did they shoot this in one shot? Because that's what it seems like. It connected so well. Now, I'm going to give this like an 8 out of 10 here because yeah, I do want some connectivity to Daredevil and I do want some connectivity to Spider-Man because I don't think we've seen Frank and Spidey together yet. So that's going to be exciting in July to see how those paths come across each other. The first thing and the most important thing I have to say about this project is Jon Bernthal, you deserve an Emmy for this. The first 10 or 15, again, Frank isn't saying much, but we are feeling what he's feeling. He's, of course, battling with PTSD. That's a long running theme in Frank Castle's storyline. The second one is grief because, of course, he loses his family in the worst way possible. They are taken from him, murdered, and all of those things kind of are just weighing so heavily in his head. And he's trying to turn a new corner and not be the Punisher. He's trying to be the man that his troop sees of him, the former men that he thinks his family wants of him. He's trying to balance that all the time. But at the same time, he doesn't want to say goodbye to war. It's like this weird thing. It's like if there was no vigilante justice, what would he be doing? Who am I? And it's like if he didn't have the war part, the crime fighting, the anti-heroism of his character, if he didn't have all of that going for him, then what's he left with? The PTSD, the grief. And he would have to face that head on. And that's the struggle with Frank Castle is like you can either go do these bad things, and sometimes in your head that's why he's the anti-hero. He can go do these bad things for the sake of being good and for the sake of justice, or you can face your grief and your PTSD head on. And he never really wants to leave the Punisher, no matter how much he thinks he does. And I love that storyline. John portrayed anger and grief. And really, where we're seeing Frank at now is he's at the brink. He's at rock bottom because he's going to take his life. He puts that gun up to his head. He's going to take his life. And John played it so well of scared, angry, grieving, mentally unstable. And without saying words, just through emotion and screaming, we can feel what Frank is feeling in that moment. Please give Jon Bernthal the Emmy because that was absolutely beautiful and gut wrenching. So good. If you guys haven't seen it, and please, even if you're not an MCU fan, I highly encourage you to watch this project. I don't even know if it's a film. It's only like 50 minutes long. It's in between. It's basically a special presentation, a long TV episode. But if you are not into the MCU, I would highly encourage you to go out and watch this one. Some of the best films, I think, are the ones with little dialogue. actors who can convey emotions with no words. This is one of them. And I would say The Legend of Ochi, which also has Finn Wolfhard in from A24. That's a great one too. But I would encourage you guys to watch this one. Let's put some trigger warnings out for you guys. There is animal abuse, there is gore and lots of blood. And some of 'em not, which is, I was gonna say some of my favorite things, not the animal abuse. Let me clarify. The gore and the action and the blood, that's good. And I really love that in my MCU projects, which is this is why I love Daredevil so much, because Daredevil hasn't shied away from doing that. Where we see Frank Castle, he's of course off the grid. He's getting hallucinations from people from his past. And, while he's visiting his grave, that's when he's contemplating suicide. And as he's returning home from that moment, he goes back to an apartment complex and he gets cornered by Ma Nucci, I think is how you say it. And this is what's interesting is that the Nucci family did have a hand in killing Frank Castle's family. So Frank Castle, seeking revenge, starts taking out the Nucci family. He takes out the husband and the three sons, and now the matriarch comes and is trying to seek her revenge on Frank Castle. So it's this weird circle of revenge between Castle and the Nucci family, which I thought was interesting. But basically, what she's telling Frank is, "I know who you are. There's a huge bounty on your head, and I'm going to tell every thug and criminal in the neighborhood, in the city, where you're at and how much this bounty is for. And I'm going to tell them a time, and that's when it starts." And that's basically the minute the action starts. Everybody's showing up to try to get Frank Castle's head, and it becomes, like I said, one long action sequence. This was, again, this is so, so great. And yeah, he's a great anti hero because he is working he is doing what he thinks is right all the time. But man, it's brutal. It's brutal. So I loved this one. Karen Page, who's played by Deborah and Wall, she makes a little cameo in there for a second. So good. Again, if you're not even fans of MCU, this is a great one to watch. It's just so good. And last thing I'll say on this is that there's something magical about Daredevil and the Punisher. Obviously, their stories are intertwined, but because Disney and Marvel let them be for mature audiences, we get to see evolutions of the character and really emotional depth for the character that I don't think you necessarily get from the Avenger type style MCU type things. And not to take away from any of those actors, but John and Charlie, when their character is going through it, the audience is going through it. They connect so well through the screen, through their emotions. Again, visceral screams. When they're fighting and they're mad and they're hitting their rage mode, you can feel that as the audience. And when they're grieving, I mean, you think back to, Frank's lost his family and all those flashbacks and hallucinations, we feel what he's going through. And when Matt lost Foggy in Born Again season 1, we feel that through Charlie and what Charlie's bringing to Matt and what John brings to Frank Castle. That's the magic of this little corner of the MCU in the Daredevil realm. It's just so good. So yeah, 8 out of 10. You know what? Not even 8 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Recommend. Fantastic. I love The Punisher. I don't care if it doesn't connect, honestly. I wanted it to, but I don't even care. Okay, next review. Don't be mad at me. I'm late to the game. I'm sorry. I finally watched Michael, the musical biography that just came out. I think it came out April 20, let me just see here. April 24th. So I'm watching it a few weeks late. Budget 155 to 200 million. It already doubled that. The box office as of right now is 584 million. So it made all of its money back. Now, I would consider myself a film enthusiast because I don't necessarily want to like critique art. And I know a lot of critics and they're not qualified to critique. It's basically personal opinion all the time. But I'm going to agree with the critics on this one. I loved Michael and seeing the story and the music come to life. Man, it was a great reminder of how talented this man was and is because the music is just, I mean, you could hear people behind me. Unfortunately, my mom next to me was singing along. You could hear everybody getting into it when the music started. And that's what's good. I mean, you cannot help but to just kind of bounce around in your seat as this music was going through. What I do agree with the critics with is that this movie was really kind of sanitized. and it kind of shied away from all of the darker allegations, maybe the darker parts of Michael's legacy. Whether you believe he was innocent or not, it doesn't matter, but it is a part of his story. And they kind of shied away and hinted at things that were meant to always portray Michael in a positive light, which again, I would like to see those darker subjects maybe written in throughout the story more because, like I said, we didn't really touch on it. We really touched on Michael's artistry and Michael's kind of outlook on life and how everything was so childlike for him and how he kind of remained in that childlike state, which of course you can't argue that because yes, Michael was the lead. His dad put all of the pressure on him, knowing he was the lead and knowing he was the success. And there's something that just breaks my heart about a dad who doesn't see a son and only sees an ATM machine. That hits so hard. They kind of dance around all of these issues without directly addressing them. Number one is they show that Michael's love, for kids, he was always trying to do the right thing by them, show up in hospitals, show up with gifts, donated his money to a lot of the kids that were in the burn unit he was at after the Pepsi incident. And it really shows how Neverland was kind of born, the idea that it came from. The second thing they kind of indirectly danced around was his potential drug addiction. After the burn incident, obviously he gets his scalp severely burned, and when he's in treatment for that in the burn unit, the doctor says, "You're gonna wanna be on a drug because this is gonna be really, really painful." And Michael says, "No, he's not gonna do it." And that kinda hints around the idea, like, that may be kind of the path that leads him down to, unfortunately, his death. Again, those are the I do agree with the critics on this one about those issues. However, the fan score was completely high because no matter really well, I guess if you're Gen Z or Gen Alpha or the whatever the generation before Z is, you probably don't remember Michael, but you've obviously come around his music. But for the rest of us, millennials and older, we've still grown up seeing all those parts of his life. So it was just like a great nostalgic film and reminder to go to because I know my grandparents knew the Jackson 5. My mom was in his kid, and I'm sure she recognized a lot of those moments throughout Michael's career from the 70s and 80s. And, of course, even in like ends at 88, but most of those things were still on the TV in the 90s when I was growing up. So I can see why the audience score is very high because it's a huge nostalgic hit. And yeah, it would serve any Michael Jackson fan justice on there. There is already a part 2 coming out, and supposedly that's supposed to talk about the darker issues in Michael's storyline, the things they've kinda danced around. However, I just have to say that there is a lot of the Jackson families are producers. Of course, Jafar Jackson played Michael here, and he did a fantastic job. But with so many of the Jackson family included, I don't think we'll see I don't wanna say a factual side to it, um, but obviously, the storyline would no matter what the opinion is, the storyline would probably portray Michael in a positive light, no matter what it is. Whether you think he's innocent or not, since the family's at hand, I don't think they would throw him under the bus. And really, they do have an obligation to protect his legacy and protect his image after death, because obviously he's not here to defend himself or, have an opinion in what they're doing. I think most of the Jacksons have been a part of this film. I know Janet said, I can't remember where, but she said that it might just be a money grab in the name of Michael and she didn't want to be a part of it. So I didn't see her name anywhere on this. But yeah, I'm still excited for part 2. We got up to 88, I think is where we end. So I'm curious to see what's next. I'm curious to see if how they tackle it. And I do just want to say huge credit to Jafar Jackson. He's 29. I believe this is his first film, and he's the nephew of Michael Jackson. He's the son of was it Jermaine Jackson? Yeah, he's the son of Jermaine Jackson. So fantastic. They did a great job making him look like Michael. I mean, there are parts in the film where I was just like, "Hey, he really looks like him." I did his voice really well, and kudos to him because if this is really his first film, having to go in and portray a huge world icon like Michael Jackson and learn the dance, which he was fantastic. That's a heavy feat. And so, yeah, kudos. He did fantastic in this. This also got, like I said, this was a huge nostalgic film for a lot of us. This also got me thinking about his death. And really, it's one of the only times that I think the world has stood still and maybe the world has been united. The first time I can think back to a moment where it like froze in time for me. Obviously, September 11th, fifth grade music class for me. But then the second time is Michael Jackson's death because I was at the grocery store Lowe's. That was my first job. Let's see, I was an assistant manager and I was doubling up as a cashier at that time. And they came up and were like, "Michael Jackson just died." Like, they just texted me, "Michael Jackson's dead." And then as customers were coming through and, checking them out, they're like, "Did you hear about Michael? Did you hear about Michael?" And every news station stopped covering everything else. It was Michael Jackson, like, 24/7. Every single station was covering that, which was incredible to see. It was sad to see, but just to know how big of an impact and how much of a headline it was, it just shows there's never gonna be a pop star like him ever. He was really the greatest of all time. And probably this was talked about all over the world. It wasn't even just a United States thing. This was probably all over the world. Also, I learned a fun fact that on average, about 5,000 people would pass out at a Michael Jackson concert. I should fact check that, but I've heard it 3 times already. That's crazy. But yeah, it just shows the impact of his death, and I do remember watching I think I was watching E! News, and the helicopter for his family service, for his memorial, it wasn't open to the public, but I think what we were watching was helicopter footage zoomed in on them. God, I remember my heart hurt so bad for his kids, and I remember specifically I was looking at Paris Jackson sitting with, like, the memorial pamphlet in her hand, and she was just reading it, and I think she had on her glasses, and my heart just broke for her so, so bad. But all of this just I think everybody's on hyper fixated on, Michael Jackson right now. So the film, 8 out of 10. I think we glossed over a little bit too much, but still the music, the story, Jafar, fantastic. Okay, you guys, this last review, I have to say an apology. Horchata without oat milk sent me their film maybe a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago in late March, maybe. And I've sat on it and I haven't talked about it. And it's not because the film was bad. I just literally succumbed to analysis by paralysis. And I was like, "Oh, I need to reach out to them. I need to reach out to them. Who to reach out? What's the correct way to do this?" Like, this was while I was figuring out transitioning from Stranger Things into film. And it was like, "How do I do this?" And then I was like, I have to do this. I cannot make this wait for the sake. Sometimes I just need to shut up and just do shit, you know? Horchata without oat milk. Let's get into it because it's a really beautiful film. It's a 2025 indie dramedy. And yes, I'm going to use dramedy because they explore heavy social issues, but they lighten it up with comedy. And it's a really great balance. They did that really well. It also explores a lot of Latino identity, family dynamics within that Latino identity, gentrification, and recidivism. And now, if you guys haven't heard of it, haven't watched it, this film follows Chunks, who's portrayed by Daniel Duno Lopez, and his brother Flaco, who's portrayed by Jerry Garcia. And I had never come across these actors before, but I'm so thankful this film introduced me to them because they're actually really funny and successful comedians in real life. And I know Daniel has a TikTok following. They're both huge stars. I'm so grateful because honestly, sometimes like a lot of these like Hollywood movies, we're recasting the same people over and over again in different projects, and it becomes a little boring. So anytime I'm introduced to new faces, I'm always very, very thankful. Daniel and Jerry had great chemistry as brothers, Chunks and Flacco. And Flacco's actually the one who commits a crime, kind of gets dragged into it and becomes like the fall guy for it. And during his prison stay, obviously things in the outside world are changing. His neighborhood home becomes gentrified. Technology has a huge advancement. And so one of the heavier topics is recidivism, which is really how do people, leaving the prison system, how do they adapt well into society with so many system barriers and how do they not fall into the cycle of crime again? A lot of these people actually fall into crime again out of survival and not necessarily because they want to commit a crime. So you think about all these people coming out of the prison system, they've got employment barriers, obviously, because they have a record, can't always find the best jobs. Also, when you're doing time, you lose your kind of your social network. And you guys know sometimes it's all about who you know, and you kind of lose that when you're inside doing time. And a lot of people, because of that, also don't necessarily have a family to go back to help them work their way back into society. So Flacco is kind of in that situation. He has a family there, but his brother Chunks is maybe a little bit more focused on chasing cloud and becoming an influencer than kind of supporting him.
And so he finds himself at a crossroads where should he join his uncle's scheme and commit one more crime? Because the crime is technically to save their family home from being joining the neighborhood and being gentrified. So does he do it? Does he stay clean? And it really explores that balance. It's a heavy subject to talk about, but they do it again, they do it so well with comedy. And the second thing is, yeah, it's about gentrification. And that's why it's called Horchata with Oat Milk. And listen, I personally would love an horchata with oat milk because that's probably the only way I can drink it because my insides have betrayed my Latin roots and I can't drink horchata without exploding, honestly. But gentrification has been a long-standing social issue because it usually affects lower income neighborhoods because investors, business people, artists, they see that opportunity to go grab cheap rent, cheap projects, and in the hopes of revitalizing the community and getting a bigger payout down the road. They take advantage of those lower costs. And unfortunately, all of the revitalization, it doesn't always benefit the original residents. A lot of people say, for the sake of gentrification, this is going to be so good for the neighborhood. It's going to bring new people. It's going to bring more commerce, higher property taxes go to the school. But unfortunately, a lot of those original residents don't ever see that payoff because they become displaced into a little bit more precarious living situations. And the film tackles this really well because Flacco doesn't recognize the neighborhood he grew up in anymore. It's completely different. And they do this so well, blending the Latino identity into this film, which is so beautiful because a lot of these neighbors, while gentrification is taking place, the neighborhood loses the cultural identity. And sometimes you gotta say, sometimes it's just whitewashed. That's what it is. That's what it comes down to. There's not really another way to say that. A lot of these communities just, yeah, they lose their cultural identity along the way. And the film explores that in a really beautiful, lighthearted way. Again, that's what I loved about this is because heavy social issues and comedy. It's a good balance. Now, here's what I'll say, like, the film could tighten up a little bit on. Some of these jokes need to be, like, fleshed out a little bit more or maybe delivered in another way to keep the impact and to keep the comedy. The second thing is that this one's hard because I know people like this who say, "Fool. Hey, what you doing, fool? Nothing, fool. You wanna get some food, fool? Yeah, where you wanna go, fool?" Like, fool for, like, a Latino is like the millennial LOL. Like, you just kinda throw it at the end of the sentence, even though it doesn't really serve a purpose to anything. But while I was watching this, I was like, "Damn, they're saying fool a lot." So maybe, like, cut that by, like, 25%. Because then that was, like, suddenly all I could focus on when they were talking, but people do genuinely talk like that. So maybe cut those back too. And then if you guys like, you can also follow them. Let me plug them real quick and make sure I get the handle right, because I would love for you guys to go support this film, especially for me, like, it's so important to support other Latinos and especially Latinos in the filmmaking industry. But yes, it's you can follow them Horchata with Oat Milk, Horchata. So it's yeah, I think a lot of you guys will really like it, especially on my Latino and Mexican friends. This is a really good one for us to watch and a good one for us to support. I loved it. I'm gonna give this one 7 out of 10, but I'm so excited for part 2 to come. I cannot wait, and I'm so thankful that they introduced me to Daniel and Jerry, and I get to follow them now because they're really funny people, and I'm gonna keep trying to get these people on because this was so good. Okay, so that's my last review. Horchata without oat milk, fantastic. The Punisher, fantastic. Michael was brilliant. And you guys, please do me a favor. We are so close. I tell you guys all this time, and we get closer and closer. One of my goals this episode, we're in year 2. We got rid of the negativity, we got rid of the fake people, and we're so close to getting to 100 listens on the debut week. We are so close to it. That is one of my goals. Please share it with the film connoisseur, the film buffs. If you guys have friends that like going to the movies with you, please share it with them so we can chat films. Today we chatted The Punisher, Michael, and chatted Horchata without oat milk. Go check all those films out. And also let me know what you thought of the films. I always want to know what your opinions are, what you liked, what you didn't like. Okay. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this, excuse me, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts now, we're everywhere now. You can hit the like button, leave a comment, download the episode, and please leave a 5-star rating for me. Your support for the channel helps me greatly. It gives me confidence, and I'm sorry, I need external validation.
to survive. It's just how it is. I need external validation. I need external love. Okay. You guys are the best people in the entire world. In case nobody told you, everything's going to work out for you. We're going to roll the credits now. And for right now, that's all I've got.